Penn State just can't get by Ohio State. Number one, Oregon and Indiana are all alone atop the Big Ten. Plus, we'll tell you what you missed over the weekend. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com and get started. So Penn State just can't get over the hump with Ohio State again. Oregon, Indiana, undefeated, AP top 25, 4 Big Ten teams in the top 8. 4. Plus, we have our own top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend, but let's get into it and chop it up a little bit. Ohio State quarterback Will Howard, still a little bit chippy because Penn State did not recruit him many years ago, overcame an early pick six or through two touchdown passes as Ohio State beat Penn State at Penn State 20-13. And I got to be honest, the piecemeal Buckeyes offensive line, which had been fighting the injury bug and their running game, wasn't great last week as well. Well, it improved a lot from the Nebraska game to this week against Penn State. It looked really good. And Penn State's the Buckeyes defense was equally tough against Penn State. Great defensive stand on a 4th and goal to stop Penn State, regain the ball on the 1 yard line, and then run out the clock for the win. That's how you play big boy football. But I thought the biggest play of this game was in the final 11 seconds of the first half. Also, defensive play by Ohio State. 1st and goal for Penn State from the 3 yard line. David Igbenson, he wrestled away that interception, which was going to be a touchdown to Harrison Wallace III. What a big swing right there. Penn State doesn't get nothing. Ohio State gets the ball out of the end zone. And they also did a great job on Penn State's all-everything tight end, Tyler Warren. Just 4 catches for 47 yards and 3 rushes for 47 yards. Both the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions now are 7-1. That's great. I know Penn State fans want a little more. They're tired of this 1 or 2 losses. They're both 4-1 of the Big Ten, but the story does continue to be the Buckeyes' dominance over James Franklin and Penn State. While he has been there, it is the 8th straight time that Ohio State has beat Penn State. James Franklin is just 1-15 against top 5 teams, and he was booed on his way off the field after the game by the home fans. He says he owns it. He understands it. Penn State fans are tired of beating everybody. Double-digit win totals. It sounds kind of weird to say you're tired of double-digit win totals every year, but always coming up on the short end against the elite teams in college football. Again, a key loss or two to top teams like Ohio State and in the past Michigan are the only things holding the Penn State Nittany Lions back. The news was not all bad for Penn State. Quarterback Drew Aller was a game-time decision due to his knee injury. He played the game, completed 12 of 20 passes for 146 yards. He threw an interception. None of that is great, but he did rush 10 times for 31 yards. I don't think he showed any ill effects of having the knee. In fact, he took the brace off that was on his knee following the injury in the Wisconsin game midway through this game over against Ohio State. Look, another good piece of news for Nittany Lion fans. Look, you're very much in the mix to get one of the 12 playoff spots. So you're still in it. You're still in it. We'll continue to talk about this as we get into the next weekend. The next couple of weekends are going to be absolutely huge. Don't forget, Tuesday, the new college football poll comes out, the first one for the football playoffs, not the AP poll, although we'll discuss that as well. Number 1, Oregon, continue to cruise. 38-17, a win in Ann Arbor over Michigan. I loved the silver chrome helmets and the white uniforms. I thought they look fantastic. And by the way, welcome to the Big Ten for Oregon, because they have wins against the traditional powers, Ohio State and Michigan, in their very first year. That's a couple of pellets on the wall for them. Plus, the Ducks remain undefeated at 9-0, 6-0 in the conference. And, the game was tied early on, 7-7. Then the Ducks poured on 304 yards of offense in the first half alone against Michigan, which likes to take some pride in some defense. Ducks Heisman candidate quarterback Dylan Gabriel completed 22 of 34 passes for 294 yards and a touchdown. By the way, that touchdown should have been ruled incomplete. It bounced. Not sure what replay was looking at, if they even did. That was bizarre to me. Nevertheless, he did have a nifty 23-yard rushing touchdown. They gave the Ducks an 18-point lead at the half. Speaking of rushing, Jordan James rushed for 117 yards and a late game-sealing touchdown for the Ducks. And all the news was not good, though, for the Ducks. The all-everything wide receiver and punt returner Tez Johnson did leave the game with a shoulder injury. He's the leading receiver in the country with 64 catches. We're going to be watching this development very closely moving forward, particularly early here in the week. Good news, Trayshawn Holden did step up, had 6 catches, almost doubled his career high with 149 yards receiving. It was Michigan's first conference home loss since 2020. They dropped to 5-4, and they face a red-hot Indiana team on the road next week. The Ducks host Maryland. Speaking of red-hot Indiana, wow. They go into Michigan State. They win 47-10, but that's not the story. The old brass spittoon over there. Curtis Rourke coming off the thumb surgery, missed a game last week. 2 screws put in his throwing thumb, injured those a couple weeks ago. Was wearing a special glove, which covered a splint on the thumb. No problem. Threw for 4 touchdown passes, including the 2 touchdowns to Elijah Sarrett. Amari Farrell had 2 interceptions in this game. The Hoosiers are 9-0 for the first time in school history. It's just the 3rd time since the Hoosiers began playing football in the 1800s that they've reached 9 wins. And it was the Hoosiers' 9th straight win by double digits. They're blowing people out all over the place. Here's a fun fact, though. They went into this game against Michigan State. They had never trailed this season, not for a second. And then they were down 10-0 in this game. First time they trailed, got down by 2 scores, and then they unreeled 47 consecutive points unanswered, including a 2-point safety on a block punt by D'Angelo Pons in the end zone. Let's talk about the Hoosier defense here. We talk a lot about their explosive offense and outscoring people, but they have the 5th best defense in the country. In addition to their 2 interceptions in this game and the safety, they had 15 tackles for loss. I don't know that I've ever heard that stat before. 15 tackles for loss. They had 7 sacks. And they held Michigan State to negative 24 yards rushing. Now, bright spot for Michigan State, their freshman, Nick Marsh, who we've talked about on this program before, 2-time freshman of the year. He's the real deal. Had a highlight reel toe tapper touch in the side of the end zone to give the Spartans that 10-0 lead we talked about. But that was about the only bright spot for them all day long. Aiden Childs even got hurt and got knocked out of the game. The Hoosiers, again, as I said, they invite Michigan to Bloomington next week. Michigan State goes to Illinois. So those are the big headlines of the day. We got a lot of other things to do. Speaking of Indiana, they finally got some respect by the AP poll that came out Sunday. 4 Big Ten teams in the top 8. We'll look at that real quick. It's not as important after this week, but we'll look at it. Plus, we'll check in with the rest of the teams around the Big Ten and what they did over this weekend and what we think about it. That's all coming up. Plus, my top 10 observations from the weekend. In the meantime, if you haven't yet, we're going to ask you to subscribe to us. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That's it. It's free. It's simple. It's 1 click. There's no other information. And that really helps both of us. And it's free. Wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Plus, we have our website. You see the crawl on the bottom. If you're on video, talkbig10.com. That's talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there chronologically and group by school. And we also have links to all your favorite schools' merchandise. If you want to buy an Indiana hat or an Oregon t-shirt or a jersey from Penn State, it's all right there. It's linked up for you, ready to go. Check it out. Christmas shopping. Get the one you love who's a Big Ten fan, some gear. That's all at talkbig10.com. Wanted to make you aware that it was out there. All right. So we got all that. We got the rest of the Big Ten, the top 25, and we'll also take a look at my top 10 Big Ten observations all in 1 minute right here as we roll on Locked On Big Ten. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to be a fan, especially to do the tailgate thing or hosting a party. So just a lot of cheering and standing up and jumping around. That's why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made for super fans just like all of us. Fans who are first in the parking lot for the tailgate, last to leave, we see you. All right, so check it out. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey to look good in front of your fans, your friends, your game day to-do list can be pretty long. And that's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. So what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. All right, I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget to peruse our website, talkbig10.com. Before we check in on the rest of the teams and their games this past weekend and what we think about them, the AP Top 25 poll came out on Sunday. Again, we got 4 teams in the top 8. Oregon not only remains number 1, they're unanimous. Georgia's 2. Ohio State's a close 3rd. They're only a few points behind Georgia for the number 2 spot. They move up 1 after the win over Penn State. You got Miami and Texas rounding out the top 5. Penn State falls 3 spots to number 6. I think all of this was expected after the Ohio State-Penn State game. Tennessee remains at 7. Indiana, your big jumper in the top 25, 5 spots up to number 8. Finally, the pollsters are taking the undefeated Hoosiers seriously. BYU and Notre Dame round out the top 10. By the way, Washington and Iowa are others receiving votes. Iowa's playing some pretty good football, to be honest. Now, this week we start to pay less attention to the AP Top 25 because now the focus goes on the weekly updates that the College Football Playoff Committee will put together each week. In fact, Tuesday, tomorrow is the first one, and we'll get a real feel for how they look at things, strength of schedule. Again, Indiana hasn't beaten any ranked teams, even though they're blowing people out. That's going to be the barometer. That's going to tell you everything you need to know. Is Indiana in or are they out in the 12 spots for the playoff spots? And again, it'll be updated every week. This isn't final by any stretch, but it will give you a good barometer how things are moving forward. And we're always curious to see how many Big Ten teams look like they're getting in versus the SEC. Will they get 4? Will they get 3? That's what we're going to see. So we'll check all of that out. Okay. That's on Tuesday. And we'll have our full thoughts on that coming up on Wednesday's show. Already planning this week ahead as we get ready for this next weekend. As we finish up last weekend, Nebraska's getting nervous. They're getting nervous. First of all, congratulations to UCLA for beating them 27-20. The Bruins have won consecutive games for the first time under first-year head coach Deshaun Foster. I mean, they are improving. They started out horribly. They're starting to show improvement. So good things for UCLA. Ethan Garbers threw 2 touchdown passes. Kane Medrano returned a second-half interception off of Dylan Raiola, a pick 6. Raiola, by the way, left the game after taking a huge hit late. It appears to be a lower back injury. He tried to get back out there, but it just locked up on him. Now, the Huskers do have a bye week, so he can get rested up before they take on Southern Cal. The Bruins also clinched this game because Nebraska didn't give up. They had a couple of scores in the second half to get this thing close. There was a great diving tipped interception by Kalen Moore off of Heinrich Haarberg. Fantastic interception. Now, here's the problem with the Cornhuskers. They've been stuck on 5 wins now. They've lost 3 games in a row. When they got 5, they're like, hey, let's get 6. Let's become bowl eligible. We don't want to be like last year. We got stuck on 5, couldn't get the 6, haven't been bowl eligible since 2016. They desperately want it there. And now that's 3 games in a row. They haven't gotten it. I think they're getting a little nervous. Very nervous. Let's keep an eye on this. Minnesota. How hot are they? They've won 4 games in a row now. They went into 24th ranked Illinois. They were 24th ranked. They're out of the top 25 now. 25-17, the final score there. PJ Flex got his team rolling. I like Max Brosmer as a quarterback. I was skeptical at first, coming from a small school like New Hampshire. He can do it. Darius Taylor, though, he's always the guy. 22 carries, 131 yards. I've always liked him. Dragan Kasich kicked 4 field goals. Gophers had 4 sacks. They did not have any interceptions, which is noteworthy because they had like 15 going into the game. But they did have 7 pass breakups, still very active in the secondary, one of the best secondaries in the Big Ten. Illinois quarterback Luke Altmaier, he lost 2 fumbles in the game, including a late one on a drive. Illinois actually took the lead in this game with 9 minutes to go. They couldn't hang on. And like I said, that loss drops Illinois on the top 25. Both teams are sitting at 6-3 right now. More bad news for Illinois, too. Linebacker Dylan Rosiak, he's the team's leading tackler. Broke his leg in the first quarter. He's going to require surgery. He'll be out for the year. Northwestern goes to overtime at Purdue at West Lafayette. 26-20, Northwestern wins. And Joseph Hyman II, he had a 51-yard touchdown early. Then had the game-winning 22-yard TD reception. Northwestern now 4-5. Purdue has dropped to 1-7, 0-2 in overtime this year. And Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana still remaining on that schedule. That is tough for the Boilermakers. Wisconsin at Iowa. Iowa doing Iowa things. Winning 42-10. Kaleb Johnson doing Kaleb Johnson things. I think the country's finally discovering who this guy is. Rushed for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. It was his 7th 100-yard rushing game. He also has 20 touchdowns this season. That ties the school record. And in fact, the 6-3 Hawkeyes rushed for 329 yards as a team in this game. Fantastic job. And by the way, what is it now? I've literally lost count. I think this is the 4th win. Let's see. Iowa's won 6 games. This is their 4th win where they've hit 40 points. Iowa. And they're still doing it without a passing game. That's what's hilarious. Brendan Sullivan, the transfer from Northwestern, made his first start for Iowa and for the injured Cade McNamara, who has a concussion, and had very Cade McNamara numbers. 7 of 10 passing, 93 yards, a touchdown, rushed for 58 yards. This is just what Iowa's offense is. And the fact that they're scoring over 40 points in these games is ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Congratulations. Iowa, always the most interesting team to watch in the Big Ten. Wisconsin couldn't do anything on both sides of the ball. Braid locked through a couple interceptions. They fall to 5-4. They're off for a week before they take on number 1 Oregon. And then there's Southern Cal at Washington. An old throwback Pac-12 game. Washington wins 26-21. Jonah Coleman doing what he does. 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very good runner. And the Huskies defense. I got to tell you, maybe you didn't watch this because it was late. If you're on the East Coast, this game was on the West Coast late at night. The Huskies made a stand on 4th down on the 1-yard line with 5 minutes to go. They stopped Woody Marks. And by the way, Marks had a good game. He rushed for 123 yards. But the Trojans got as close as the 14-yard line on their next drive, and they got stopped again. Again, the Washington defense, phenomenal. Washington's Carson Bruner had 2 interceptions in this game. And the Huskies' Denzel Boston had 9 catches for 99 yards, and the Huskies are 1 win away from becoming bowl eligible at 5-4. USC drops another one. They fall to 4-5. They are having a tough time in the Big Ten. All right, lots of things to just throw in there. Now we're going to pull out the best. All right, what does that mean? We got our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. I'm going to share them with you. Let's see if my list matches your list. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. You get a hunch in the middle of the game. You want to look up a stat. You want to see what the score is, play-by-play, all right there on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Monday Night Football, Buccaneers at the Chiefs, -9. That's a big number. Remember, the Buccaneers playing without some wide receivers, Godwin and Evans. So I like the Chiefs to win. I like them to cover the 9, but I like the under. I don't know that the Bucs are going to score a lot of points here. 45.5 is the number. You can make bets like that right there at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, I want to take a look at our Big Ten top 10 observations from the weekend and share them with you. We'll put them on screen. If you're audio only, we will describe them here, and we'll get your opinion on this too. Okay, here we go. At number 10, I wanted to give a shout out to Northwestern. Just talked about him a minute ago. This Joseph Hyman II had that 51-yard touchdown and then the game-winning 22-yard reception against Purdue. Big game for him. First time we've mentioned him this season. All right, at number 9. And, these aren't necessarily in any order. They're in a pseudo order. I just wanted to put them on the board, all 10 of them. But I do want to give a shout-out to Minnesota running back Darius Taylor for his 131-yard performance on the ground in the win over Illinois. And, again, his Minnesota Golden Gophers have won 4 straight football games. Elsewhere, I love to give shout-outs to defensive guys. Carson Bruner from Washington with his 2 interceptions. Do you know that the Washington Huskies have won 19 straight games at home after their win over USC? They're a much different team on the road. They are. They haven't won any Big Ten games on the road. They win everything at home, and this home streak continues, obviously, over the last couple of years. Tough place for visitors to go play there at Washington. At number 7, UCLA, Kane Medrano, returning the second half pick 6 off of Dylan Raiola. And also, I want to mention that interception by Caleb Moore off of Heinrich Harburg late in the game. Got deflected. He dove at it, got it. That was a beautiful play. Nice defense by the UCLA Bruins. And they make our list as well. At number 6, speaking of defense, I'm just going to put the whole Indiana Hoosier defense. We talk about their offense. We talk about how many points they score, but the defense is something else. They're the 5th best in the country, and they complement their offense so well there. 2 games in a row. They had 2 interceptions. I think they had 3 last week, but 2 weeks in a row, they had somebody get 2 interceptions on the team. Last week was D'Angelo Pons. This week was Amari Farrell. And then speaking of Pons, he had a safety. Again, I mentioned this earlier. 15 tackles for loss. Never heard of that. I don't know. There's got to be some sort of record. I didn't see if it was, but 7 sacks and holding Michigan State to negative 24 yards rushing and turned them into a very one-dimensional football team. And as long as we're talking about Indiana, I'm going to put quarterback Curtis Rourke. I mean, how many of you could break your thumb, have a couple screws put in it, come back, only miss 1 game, and come back and throw 4 touchdowns? That's incredible. He said he was in pain every time he threw. Just blocked it out. Just did it. Had a splint over his thumbnail underneath the glove and just went out and balled out and played. Just a phenomenal job there. And that was great. 4 touchdown passes. He's on a roll. I think the nation's starting to notice him. As I mentioned, the nation is starting to mention the guy we put here at number 4, and that is Iowa running back Kaleb Johnson. He's a threat to break 200 yards any given day. He did rush for 135 and the 3 touchdowns in the win over Wisconsin. I got to put a night game at Kinnick Stadium on my bucket list. That looks really cool. That looked like a lot of fun as well. All right, moving up on our list at number 3, let's talk some Oregon Ducks. Trayshawn Holden stepping up. Tez was out. He got 6 catches, almost doubling his career high with 149 yards receiving. And a shout out to Jordan James, who rushed for 117 yards and had that game-sealing touchdown in the big house against the Wolverines. And at number 2, I'm going to stick with the Ducks here. I'm going to give them a shot. I love those uniforms. Every week you wait to see what kind of uniform the Ducks are going to come out with all that Nike money. Are they going green, gold, silver, chrome? They had the chrome silver helmets. They had some silver accents on their white jerseys. I thought that looked awesome. And so it made my list. How about that? And then at number 1, I want to put on the top of our list what I thought was the defensive play of the week. And I think it got buried in all the highlights, but Ohio State's David Igbinosun, who, like I said, wrestled away that interception on a possible touchdown pass at the end of the first half at Penn State. It looked like Harrison Wallace, the third, was going to have a touchdown. And somehow Igbinosun just snatched it away with one arm. And then, oh, look, the foot was down. And I think we finally looked at it on TV. He's like, wait a minute, this is an interception. It was one of those kind of deals. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. So those are it. That's our list. Our top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. Let me know what you think about all of those. Always love to see you guys up in the comments as well, especially the rivals going back and forth in the comment section on YouTube. Tons of way for you to interact with me. Twitter, Talk Big Ten, at Talk Big Ten, or X, whatever you prefer. Our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10. You see, if you're on video now, you see on the crawl on the bottom, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts, and you can even buy your favorite merchandise there from your favorite Big Ten team. Plus, I'll always ask you, and this is always free, to subscribe before you just hit the subscribe button, and that's it. It doesn't require any information. It's free forever. And then we're in your loop with the latest because we're out here with podcasts every single day here talking Big Ten. We're your number one source for Big Ten news, commentary, analysis, and opinion right here. And we welcome it back from you with the comments as well. So subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and to get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. These weeks are getting more and more important. November football, they'll get any better than that. We'll continue with all the latest news of the Big Ten, plus our Tuesday tweets coming up tomorrow. Send me a tweet. Maybe I'll put it on tomorrow's podcast right here. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you next time.